Okay, veterans, welcome back to another episode. So, up till now, we've covered mainly job stuff. But today, let's assume you've gone through all of that and now you've gotten the job and you're doing your transition and all that sort of thing. Essentially, you've been successful. So let's talk about your first 3, 6, 9, 12 months out of the military. And let's talk about the difficulty you might encounter, that you likely will encounter. And these difficulties, it doesn't matter whether you joined straight out of high school or whether you had a civilian life before you joined the military. Most of this stuff will still apply to you. You're probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're not, here's a quick screenshot of it for you to familiarize yourself. Now, why am I talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Basically because being in the military, the organization itself takes care of a lot of these without you even having to think about it. People always say the military isn't a job, it's a lifestyle, and that's exactly what it's referring to. Let's compare being in the military to a typical civilian job. So let's compare, someone in the infantry to, let's say, someone working a bookkeeping job for a trucking company. So you're in the infantry. You have an organization that provides you with meaning. You don't just love running and gunning. The fact that you're wearing a uniform, that you're protecting your country, that you have that respect of the community, that's meaning. The guy doing bookkeeping for a trucking company, what meaning does he have in his job? Maybe he loves it, I don't know. But he doesn't, he's working with numbers all day for a company that's driving stuff around. Most people in society won't find meaning in their job the way that you find meaning in the military. So that's the first thing. You've got meaning. You've got a job that you likely love. Again, all you need to do is look at Gallup employment data. 70% of people are labeled as disengaged employees based on their survey responses. That means they go to work and they're there for the paycheck and that's it. Now, if you're in the military, it probably flips. 70% of military employees are likely very engaged because, again, there's a lot of meaning in that work and they likely thoroughly enjoy their job in the military. The next thing the military provides you is community. People talk about the brother and sisterhood of the military. Everyone in a uniform is your brother or your sister. They're not work colleagues. They're not acquaintances. The fact that I'm on here providing this series is because essentially every veteran is a brother or a sister. Again, go into a civilian workplace, that's not a thing. They're colleagues. You go into the same workplace, you do your job, you talk a bit here and there, you go home. Someone leaves, you forget about them in a few weeks or months. What else does the military provide? Physical fitness. And they don't just expect you to maintain your physical fitness. Physical fitness is baked in. You do PT sessions as part of your job. You don't even have to think about it. And we can essentially stop there. The military provides you with meaning, with community, with a job that you love, with physical fitness. 4 things that almost no civilian job provides anyone. So when you leave the military, what does that mean? It means that you're going to have to recreate that for yourself. To take a movie that I love, Moneyball. When the struggling Oakland A's have to sell one of their big stars, they don't have the money to replace that person. They replace them by replacing the aggregate. This person is a superstar that got on base X percentage of the time. Okay, well, let's find 3 people who combined are a fraction of that price who get on base the same percentage of the time. and replace him with that. That's what you're going to need to do. Now, look, there are some workplaces, the company that I stumbled into, and I've been there for 12 years now, it provides a lot. I do have a community because they're all like-minded people. I don't have physical fitness baked in, but almost everyone there is a fitness enthusiast. So that's kind of baked in too. There's a lot of meaning there because I'm in medical devices, which is healthcare. So we're saving people. So you can find that in civilian workplaces, but that is the exception. It's not the norm. So how do you recreate this? Well, if I had to do that tomorrow, if I was suddenly at a company where it was just a job, how would I do that? First thing is I'd reach out to ex-service organizations. I'd find a community of veterans because they know how hard it is having gotten out, and they'll be able to help you. And not only that, it's just comforting being around other veterans. Anytime I meet a veteran now, within about 30 seconds, we're talking like we served at the same unit. Because while you might find it hard to relate to, any random civilian you talk to, as soon as you talk to someone in the military, hey, what'd you do? Where you go? Who'd you serve with? And suddenly you're telling stories that, even if you served in different countries, in different services, the stories overlap so much that you'll have a rapport going within a minute, and after 5 minutes, you'll feel like you knew this person for 30 years. So first thing, find fellow veterans. Spend time with your family. If you're religious, church, synagogue, mosque, whatever, you're going to have to lean into this stuff. Because the other thing you've probably found already, because it's a common experience. Your friends from childhood likely aren't really your friends anymore. Maybe you still talk to one or two, but it's a fairly common experience that there's life before the military and then there's life after. And it's not that you have to go out creating new friendships, but I think you need to re-engage with your family. Now, look, they're not going to understand a lot of aspects of your military life, and that's okay. Most civilians won't, but you can't get into the mindset that the only people worth talking to are people that have served. So to sort of sum up community, get involved with veterans that have moved into the civilian world, and also lean into family, lean into local community. Next up, physical fitness. This is huge. Now, if you're like me, I'm very much, I've been an athlete since I was a kid. I was in swimming squads when I was like 8 and I never stopped. So it was not even a thing for me when I left the military. I'll just not work out anymore. No, I went back to judo. I was into powerlifting, and I've continued since. But for a lot of people, maybe you didn't grow up, with that level of physical fitness enthusiasm, and you just did what you had to do in the military. The worst thing you can do is to just drop that the second you get out, because you were probably, not only is it bad to just drop the physical activity, but you probably don't realize that you ate at a level that would support that physical activity while you're in the military. Now, you keep eating like that, which you will because it's a habit, and you drop the physical activity, you're gonna get fat. And not only are you gonna put on weight, but the fact that you've stopped working out means all those happy drugs are out of your system now. The endorphins, the stuff that makes you feel good, all that's going out. And because you're putting on weight, it's gonna make you feel even worse. So you might end up needing to take antidepressants, or because you just stopped exercising. So look, I get it. Group PT in the military, hey, sometimes it sucks. And to be honest, I hated Army PT. It was all cardio. If you hate group PT, find something you do like. And here's the kicker, do it before you leave. Don't wait until you've gotten out and then start looking for something, because you're going to be worried about everything else that comes up when you leave. Try a bunch of classes. If you've always wanted to take up boxing, or if you've always wanted to do yoga or something, maybe start trying to squeeze it in before you even get out. The point is, even if you have to force yourself, keep working out, and keep working out at the same rate that you were in the military. So if you were doing PT 4 days a week, do not do your own physical training any less than 4 days a week. You know, even if you have to mix it up. Oh, I'll do yoga one day, I'll do swimming another day, I'll just go for a run one day, and maybe I'll do a dance class the other day. I don't know. The point is, try and replace it directly. But keep trying different things until you find something that gels with you. Now, as an aside, a really great thing you could do is find something that has a community, because now you're doubling up. So one of the things that the military, we just talked about it, finding a community outside the military. So, okay, maybe you've got a community of veterans, you've got your family community, you've got your church community, and maybe you jump into CrossFit. Well, now you have your CrossFit community. Or you jump into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now you have your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community. So that one overarching community you had in the military has now been aggregated out amongst 4 different places. So let's talk about the last one, and probably the most difficult one to replicate outside: meaning. Where do you even start? You probably joined the military because it was something that always called to you. And so, you know, and the recruitment ads do a really good job of connecting that to serving your country and a higher purpose and all that kind of thing. And now you've gotten out and, you know, maybe you work in construction or a corporate job or whatever. It is going to be incredibly difficult to replace the meaning that you found in military service outside of that. A lot of people try a lot of different things, and this is why it's so hard, because talk to most civilians and see how much meaning they have in their lives. Go online, look at YouTube comment sections. Look at comment sections everywhere. People are angry, they're disconnected, they're disaffected, and they're just looking for places to vent at. And look, this is hard. This is an age-old question. I'm not Immanuel Kant. I'm not Socrates. I'm not a philosopher. I might have read a lot of it and thought about a lot of it, but I can't tell you how to find meaning. I can tell you how I've found meaning post-military, and maybe you can use that as a template. Community is a big one. We are social animals. The worst thing you can do is to go to a job you hate, not connect with people, and then go home and be alone. That's just going to torpedo any chance of happiness you have. If you want to find meaning post-military, find a charity that you can work for. Help other veterans. Perfect example right here. I have found so much meaning in helping veterans transition because my transition was shit. And I blamed myself. You know, at the time I couldn't understand it. And then in hindsight, I blamed myself for it. And then in hindsight, and in further hindsight, looking at it, I realized I blamed myself far too much. And so this is why I'm doing this. I want to help veterans transition. There are other guys I know who raise money for, you know, charities like Legacy in Australia, who help war widows and the families of veterans who didn't come home. Community will provide a lot of meaning, but essentially you're going to have to find out, I guess, what makes you tick in a sense, because if you don't understand yourself and what gives you meaning, then how are you possibly going to find it? Now, look, I know that's not super specific. It might feel a bit vague. And again, like I said, this is one of the great questions of humanity. How do I find meaning? So I'm not going to solve it for you in a couple of minutes on a YouTube video. And look, hey, ask me some more targeted questions in the comments, I guess. That's sort of the best that I can do for you. But I guess, look, you can always find meaning in helping other people out. So once you transition and everything's going great, find another veteran and see if you can help them. And I guess the last thing I'd like to touch on in terms of transition is seek the right kind of help if you need to. This is a super tricky topic because the first thing anyone ever says is maybe you should talk to somebody. And of course, what they always mean is you need to talk to a psychologist. Now, for some people that'll be good and some people it won't be. Because one of the things our Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran, I can't say the S word because, the YouTube algorithm, but you know what I mean. One of the main things they found was that group therapy is far more successful for veterans than an individual counseling session with a psychologist. Because veterans, more than anything, understand each other. Veterans, it's the typical thing of like dark humor that you see in the medical field. Veterans have similar senses of humor. They've been through similar things and they don't open up well to people who haven't been through those things. So look, if you've been through some stuff, if you're still carrying that baggage, find the help that you need most. Now, if you want to go talk to a psychologist, that's great. I would say get recommendations from ex-service organizations, from other veterans who have used those people who can vouch for them. I would say don't go to just any random civilian psychologist. To go back to community, the veteran community is huge. I don't have a lot of baggage from my military service. I have a little, and look, let's face it, almost everyone does. And I found that the best thing for me was when we started a veterans association at my company. Just being able to sit and talk to other veterans. Subjects come up that everyone is familiar with, and because you're in that safe space of veterans, everyone's honest. And just getting that stuff off your chest with each other, knowing that other people understand, is most of the battle. So I hope that was helpful today. Like I said, this is a pretty wide-ranging subject and it's very hard to get super specific, but I don't think most transition services get this stuff across well enough. And so I hope today that I have. I'm more than happy to explore this much further in subsequent episodes if there's an appetite for it. So in that vein, as always, ask me questions in the comments. Give me comments on and feedback on what I've talked about today. Because, this is the sort of stuff, hey, I can be really specific in what you need in job interviews and work and all that sort of stuff. That's the easy stuff. The psychological stuff after separation, that's the difficult stuff that, there's not a simple checklist for. With that said, hopefully I've covered what I've covered today pretty well. Please like, subscribe, share this with veterans, and I will see you in the next episode.